The message arrived on a Tuesday morning, Earth time. It came through channels that humanity had only discovered existed 3 months ago. The Galactic Concord, a coalition of alien species that had ruled the galaxy for 12,000 years, had finally agreed to hear humanity's request for membership. Ambassador read the message twice. Then she read it a third time. She was 52 years old, had spent 30 years in diplomatic service, and had negotiated peace treaties between nations that had been at war for centuries. But this was different. This was not a meeting between countries. This was a meeting between species, between worlds, between civilizations that measured their history in thousands of years. She looked out her window at the city below. Cars moved through streets, people walked to work, children played in parks. None of them knew what was about to happen. None of them knew that in 3 days she would stand before beings who had watched stars die and be reborn. The preparation took 72 hours, selected her team carefully. She chose people who could stay calm under pressure, people who would not show fear no matter what they saw, people who understood that this meeting would decide humanity's future in ways that no election or war ever could. The ship that carried them was called the Dawn's Promise. It was humanity's finest vessel, equipped with the best technology Earth could produce. Knew it would look like a toy compared to what waited for them. That was fine. She was not trying to impress anyone with their ship. The journey took 6 hours. They traveled through something called fold space, a method of faster-than-light travel that human scientists had discovered almost by accident. When they emerged, saw the Concord station for the first time. It was massive. There was no other word for it. The station was the size of a small moon hanging in the darkness of space like a jewel made of light and metal. Ships surrounded it, hundreds of them, each one representing a different species. Some were elegant and curved. Others were sharp and angular. A few seemed to be alive, their hulls pulsing with organic movement. The Dawn's Promise was directed to a docking port on the station's outer ring. As the ship settled into place, gathered her team in the airlock. There were 5 of them in total. Each one wore a simple black uniform with Earth's symbol on the shoulder. No medals, no decorations, just clean lines and quiet confidence. "Remember," said, "we are here to listen and to speak. We are not here to fight. No matter what they say, no matter how they treat us, we remain calm, we remain polite, we remain human." Her team nodded, they understood. The airlock opened, and they stepped onto the station. The air smelled strange. It was breathable, but there was something in it that could not identify, something old. The corridor ahead was wide enough for creatures much larger than humans. The walls glowed with soft light that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. A guide was waiting for them. It was a machine of some kind, floating in the air without any visible means of support. It spoke in perfect English, though its voice had no emotion. "Welcome to Concord Station. The assembly is waiting. Please follow." They followed. The walk took 20 minutes. Along the way, saw things that no human had ever seen before. Gardens filled with plants that moved on their own. Windows that looked out onto views of distant galaxies. Beings of every shape and size, walking or floating or crawling through the station's corridors. Some of them stopped to look at the humans, felt their eyes on her, studying her, judging her. She kept her face calm and her steps steady. She had been judged before. She could handle it. The assembly hall was at the heart of the station. The doors were 50 meters tall, made of some material that shimmered like liquid gold. They opened without a sound, revealing the space beyond. Had seen pictures of great halls on Earth. The Vatican, the United Nations, the ancient palaces of emperors and kings, none of them compared to this. The assembly hall was a sphere half a kilometer across. Platforms floated in the air at different heights, each one holding delegates from a different species. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Light came from a central point that hung in the middle of the sphere like a small sun. And at the top, on the highest platforms, sat the senior members of the Concord. Recognized them from the briefing files. The beings made of living crystal who had existed for millions of years. They glowed with inner light, their bodies shifting through colors that human eyes could barely see. The creatures with hive minds that connected billions of individuals into a single intelligence. Their platforms buzzed with constant movement. The serpentine beings with scales like polished metal who had conquered more worlds than humanity had discovered. These were the powers of the galaxy. These were the species that had shaped the stars while humanity was still learning to make fire. Walked to the center of the hall where a small platform waited for her. Her team took their positions behind her. The platform rose slowly, carrying them up into the sphere until they floated at eye level with the senior delegates. For a moment there was silence. Then the high speaker moved forward on his platform. He was enormous, at least 10 meters long, his body coiled around itself like a spring. His eyes were cold and yellow without pupils. "So," he said, his voice translated into English by the station systems, "these are the humans." He said the word like it was something unpleasant, something he had found on the bottom of his scales. "We have come to present our application for membership in the Galactic Concord," said. Her voice was clear and steady. "We thank the Assembly for this opportunity." They made a sound that might have been a laugh. It was not a friendly sound. "Thank us," he said. "Yes, you should thank us. It is not often that we allow such young species to speak in this hall. Most of your kind would still be swimming in oceans or crawling through mud." Laughter rippled through the assembly. It came from dozens of different species in dozens of different forms. Some laughed with voices, some flashed lights, some simply radiated amusement through means that could not understand. She stood still and waited for the laughter to end. "We are young," she agreed. "That is true, but we have come far in a short time. We believe we have something to offer the conquered." The eyes narrowed. "And what?" he asked. "Could creatures who live barely 100 years possibly offer to civilizations that have existed for millions?" Smiled. "Perhaps," she said, "you should let us explain." The assembly speaker, an ancient whose crystal body was almost white with age, raised one shimmering appendage. "Very well," he said. "The human delegation may present their case, but I warn you, Ambassador, this assembly does not suffer fools. Choose your words carefully." Nodded. "I always do," she said. And so the presentation began, had prepared her presentation for weeks. She had consulted with scientists, historians, and diplomats. She had studied everything humanity knew about the Galactic Concord and its members. She had practiced her words until they flowed like water. None of it mattered. The moment she finished speaking, the mockery began. The delegate was the first to respond. His name was, and he had lived for 600,000 years. His body was made of perfect geometric shapes that shifted and changed as he spoke. Light passed through him and came out different colors. "The human speaks well," said. "For a creature with such a small brain, but words are not enough. Let us examine what humanity actually offers." A holographic display appeared in the center of the hall. It showed Earth, spinning slowly in space. Next to it appeared other worlds, hundreds of them, each one belonging to a member species of the conquered. "This," said, pointing at Earth, "is the human, a single planet, one world in an ocean of stars. The control 17,000 star systems, the control 12,000. Even the youngest member of this conquered controls at least 500 worlds." He made a sound like glass breaking. It was laughter. "And the humans, one world. One small, fragile world that could be destroyed by a single asteroid, by a single solar flare, by a single disease. What happens to humanity if Earth dies? You become nothing. You become extinct. You become a footnote in the history of the galaxy." Kept her face still. She had expected this. "We are expanding," she said. "We have colonies on Mars, on the moons of Jupiter, on 3 worlds outside our solar system. We are growing." "Growing," repeated. "Yes, like bacteria in a dish, but bacteria die when the dish is broken. You have not solved the fundamental problem of your species. You are too few, too concentrated, too vulnerable." He turned to the assembly. "I vote against membership. Humanity is not ready." The vote was noted. Felt her heart sink, but she kept her expression neutral. The next to speak was they did not have individuals in the way humans understood them. Every member of their species was connected to a central intelligence that spoke for all of them. The voice that came through the speakers was made of thousands of voices speaking together. "We have observed humanity," they said. "We have watched them for 300 years since they first discovered faster-than-light travel. In that time, we have reached certain conclusions." The holographic display changed. Now it showed human history. Wars, famines, plagues, cities burning, bodies lying in fields. "Humans are violent," they said. "They kill each other constantly. In the last 1,000 years alone, they have fought over 1,000 major wars. They have killed hundreds of millions of their own kind. They cannot even achieve peace among themselves." One of his team members shifted uncomfortably. She held up a hand, signaling him to stay calm. "This is true," they continued, "and it tells us something important about the human species. They are unstable, unpredictable, dangerous. Not to us, of course. A single hive ship could destroy Earth's entire military in an afternoon, but dangerous to themselves, and dangerous to any alliance they join." The display changed again, showing the current state of human politics. Different nations, different governments, different ideologies competing for power. "They have not even unified their own planet," they said. "They still divide themselves into tribes, into nations, into factions that hate each other. How can such a species be trusted to participate in galactic affairs? How can they be trusted to speak with one voice?" Opened her mouth to respond, but that was not finished. "We vote against membership. Humanity is too divided, too chaotic, too young." The vote was noted, felt the weight of the Assembly's judgment pressing down on her. The High Speaker slithered forward on his platform. He had been watching the proceedings with obvious amusement, his yellow eyes gleaming in the light of the central sun. "My colleagues make excellent points," he said, "but they have missed the most important one." He turned to look directly at. His gaze was cold and ancient. This was a being who had personally ordered the extinction of 17 species, a being who had watched worlds burn and felt nothing but satisfaction. "The problem with humanity," he said, "is not that they are few. It is not that they are violent. These things can change. Given enough time, even the most primitive species can learn, can grow, can become civilized." He paused, letting the word hang in the air. "The problem with humanity is that they are weak." The word hit like a physical blow. She kept her face still, but inside something stirred, something hot and angry. "Look at them," the High Speaker said, gesturing at her team. "Soft flesh, fragile bones, they cannot survive in vacuum, they cannot survive in heat, they cannot survive in cold. They need food every day. They need water every few hours. They need sleep every night. A human without technology is just an animal, a clever animal perhaps, but an animal nonetheless." He coiled his body higher, looking down at the human delegation from a great height. "They can survive in the void of space for days. They do not need food or water at all. They can adapt to any environment within a single generation. But humans are prisoners of their biology, slaves to their weak bodies." He made the laughing sound again. "They call themselves intelligent, they call themselves advanced, but they are like children playing with toys they do not understand. They found faster-than-light travel by accident. They stumbled upon it like a blind creature stumbling upon a cliff. They did not earn it. They did not deserve it." The Assembly hummed with agreement. Hundreds of species, all nodding or flashing or vibrating their assent. "I have lived for 4 million years," the High Speaker said. "I have seen species rise and fall. I have seen empires that span galaxies crumble to dust. And I tell you this, humanity will not survive. They are too weak, too fragile, too temporary." He turned back to, "We do not admit the dead to our conquered. We do not waste our time on species that will not exist in 1,000 years. Go home, little human. Go back to your single planet. Enjoy what time you have left. It will not be long." The Assembly erupted in laughter. It was not just the senior members now. Every platform, every species, every delegate was making sounds of amusement. The noise filled the sphere, echoing off the walls, surrounding and her team like a wave. She stood in the center of it all, small and alone. Her team looked at her, waiting for her response, waiting for her to do something, to say something. Took a breath. "Are you finished?" she asked. The laughter began to fade. The High Speaker looked at her with something like surprise. "What?" "I asked if you were finished," said, "because if you are, I have something to show you." The High Speaker's eyes narrowed. "You dare to speak to me like that? Do you know who I am? Do you know what I have done?" "Yes," said, "I know exactly who you are. I know exactly what you have done. I read your file, all 17 species, all those worlds you burned." She smiled. "Now, if you will permit me, I have a presentation of my own." The Assembly had gone quiet. The laughter had stopped. Every eye, every sensor, every form of perception in that vast sphere was focused on the small human woman standing in the center. Reached for her wrist console. "Computer," she said, "begin program Prometheus." And everything changed. The holographic display changed. The images of human weakness disappeared. In their place appeared something new, something different. Earth, not the small, fragile world the aliens had shown. This was Earth as humanity knew it, a blue marble spinning in the darkness. Oceans of deep blue, continents of green and brown, clouds swirling across the surface like brushstrokes on a painting. This is our home, said. You look at it and see weakness. You see a single planet that can be destroyed. But you are missing something important. You are missing what this planet actually is. The image zoomed in. The surface began to reveal itself in detail. Earth is not a gentle world, continued. It is not a paradise, it is a world of extremes, look. The image shifted to show the Antarctic. Vast plains of ice stretched to the horizon. Temperatures so cold that exposed skin would freeze in seconds. Wind that could knock a grown man off his feet. We have ice, said. Frozen wastelands where nothing should survive, but humans live there. We build stations, we conduct research, we endure. The image shifted again. Now it showed the Sahara Desert. Sand dunes rising like golden waves, heat that could kill in hours, no water for hundreds of kilometers. We have deserts, said. Burning lands where the sun is an enemy, but humans cross them. We have crossed them for thousands of years. We find water where there is none. We find shade where there is none. We survive. The image changed to show the ocean, not the surface but the depths, crushing pressure, complete darkness, cold that seeped into bones. We have oceans, said. Depths that would crush most creatures, but we go there anyway. We build machines to take us down, we explore, we discover. We refuse to be stopped by mere physics. The delegate made a dismissive gesture. Impressive adaptations for animals, but this proves nothing. Any species can survive on its, that is simply evolution. Is it? Asked. Then let me show you something else. The display changed again. Now it showed a mountain, Mount Everest, the highest point on Earth. Wind screaming across bare rock, temperatures far below freezing. Oxygen so thin that the human body began to die. This is the top of our world, said. There is no reason to go there, nothing to gain, nothing to find. The journey kills 1 out of every 10 who attempt it. She paused. And yet we go, thousands of us. Every year, not because we need to, not because there is profit, but because it is there, because we want to know if we can. Because humans look at impossible things and ask, why not? The image shifted to show a human standing on the moon. The old photograph from 1969. In his white suit, the lunar surface stretching out behind him, Earth hanging in the black sky. 50 years after we learned to fly, said, we walked on another world, not because we had to, because we wanted to, because we looked up at the moon and thought we could go there. Let us try. The buzzed impatiently. Ancient history, primitive rockets, chemical propulsion. We had surpassed such technology millions of years before you existed. Yes, agreed. You did, but you missed the point. The point is not the technology. The point is the will. The point is that we looked at something impossible and made it possible, in a single generation, in a single lifetime. She turned to face the directly. You told me that humans live short lives, that we barely last 100 years. You said this was a weakness, but you are wrong. Our short lives are our greatest strength. The assembly stirred. This was not what they expected. A lives for millions of years, said. What is the hurry? You can wait 1,000 years for the perfect conditions. You can take your time. Plan for centuries. Move slowly, carefully, without risk. She spread her hands. But we cannot. We have 80 years. Maybe 90 if we are lucky. We do not have time to wait for perfect conditions. We do not have time to be careful, so we take risks. We move fast. We fail and we try again. We accomplish in decades what other species take to achieve. The display showed human history again. But this time it was different. This time it showed progress. Fire, agriculture, cities, writing, machines, flight, space. 10,000 years, said. That is how long it took us to go from farming to starships. 10,000 years, that is nothing. That is the blink of an eye, and we did it because we have no choice. Because every generation knows it must accomplish something. Because every human knows that death is coming and there is no time to waste. The high speaker had stopped laughing. He was watching with something new in his eyes, something that might have been interest. You mock our violence, continued. You show pictures of our wars and say we are dangerous. You are right. We are dangerous. We are the most dangerous species in this galaxy. She let that sink in. Every generation we train soldiers. Every decade we build new weapons. Every century we fight wars that push our technology forward. You think this is a weakness? It is the opposite. It means we are never soft, never unprepared, never complacent. The display showed human weapons, not to threaten but to demonstrate. Swords evolving into guns, guns evolving into missiles, missiles evolving into things that made the assembly uncomfortable. We have been fighting each other for our entire existence, said. Do you know what that means? It means we are practiced. It means we are experienced. It means that when a real threat comes, we do not panic, we do not freeze, we fight. Because that is what we do, that is what we have always done. She paused, looking around at the assembly. You say we are divided, that we have nations and factions and tribes, that we cannot speak with one voice, but you do not understand what those divisions mean. The display showed Earth again, the different nations, the different cultures, the different languages and beliefs and ways of life. Each nation has its own strengths, its own ideas, its own ways of solving problems. When one approach fails, another succeeds. We are not a single point of failure. We are millions of points of innovation, millions of experiments running at the same time, millions of chances to find the right answer. Smiled. You have unity, we have diversity, and in the long run, diversity always wins, because the universe is not predictable. The universe throws problems at you that you cannot imagine, and when that happens, you need new ideas, fresh perspectives, different ways of thinking. She turned back to the delegate. You asked what we could offer to civilizations that have existed for millions of years. The answer is simple. We offer change. We offer speed. We offer the desperate creativity of a species that knows it has no time to lose. The assembly was silent now. The laughter had died completely. Every delegate was watching with new eyes. You call us mayflies, she said. You call us temporary, you say we will not last, but here is the truth. She straightened her spine and lifted her chin. Mayflies do not build starships. Mayflies do not cross deserts and climb mountains and walk on moons. Mayflies do not look at impossible things and make them possible. Her voice grew stronger. We are not mayflies, we are humans, and we have something that none of you have, something that all your years and all your power cannot give you. The high speaker leaned forward. And what is that? Smiled. Hunger, she said. We are hungry, hungry for knowledge, hungry for growth, hungry for more, and that hunger drives us forward faster than your ancient wisdom ever could. She reached for her console again. But words are not enough. You want proof. You want to see what humanity can really do. She looked up at the assembly. Then let me show you. Her finger touched the console. Activate external sensors, she said, full display. And the walls of the assembly hall became transparent. The walls of the assembly hall were made of a special material. It could be solid and opaque, or it could become transparent, showing the space outside the station. For 12,000 years, this feature had been used for ceremonies, for celebrations, for moments when the conquered wanted to remind itself of the vastness of the galaxy it ruled. Now it showed something else entirely. Ships. Human ships. They filled the space around the station like stars. Thousands of them, tens of thousands. They hung in the darkness in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of distant suns. They had not been there an hour ago. They had arrived in complete silence, appearing from nowhere, invisible until this very moment. The assembly erupted in chaos. Delegates screamed in 100 different languages. Platforms lurched as beings scrambled to see better, to understand what they were looking at. The buzzed with alarm, its thousands of voices speaking over each other. The flickered through colors so fast they seemed to strobe. Only the high speaker remained still. He stared at the fleet with his cold yellow eyes, and slowly his scales began to change color. They went from polished silver to pale gray. It was fear. For the first time in 4 million years, the high speaker of the was afraid. Stood in the center of the chaos, calm and quiet. This is the second fleet of the United Human Navy, she said. Her voice was not loud, but somehow it cut through the noise. Approximately 15,000 vessels, 30 dreadnoughts, 200 carrier groups, 800 cruisers, the rest are support ships, scouts, and fighter carriers. She paused to let that sink in. We call the flagship the Persistence. It is 1.2 kilometers long. It carries enough firepower to crack a planet, and it is not even our largest ship. The assembly speaker, the ancient, managed to compose himself. His crystalline body stopped flickering and settled into a deep blue color. "This is impossible," he said. "We have monitored human space for 3 centuries. We would have seen a fleet of this size being constructed. We would have known." "Would you?" asked. "Did you send scouts? Did you investigate? Or did you simply assume that the primitive humans could not possibly surprise you?" The speaker did not answer. He did not need to. The answer was obvious. "You never looked," said. "Not really. You saw our small ships, our early colonies, our stumbling first steps into the galaxy, and you decided that was all we were, all we could ever be. You dismissed us. You ignored us. And while you were laughing at our weakness, we were building." She gestured at the fleet outside. 300 years, that is how long we have had faster-than-light travel. You thought we spent that time playing with toys. You were wrong. We spent it preparing, planning, growing. We built shipyards in systems you had forgotten existed. We mined asteroids in regions of space you considered worthless. We trained crews in the darkness between stars where no one was watching. The had regained some control. Its voice came through the speakers, buzzing with suspicion. "Why reveal this now? If you have such power, why not use it? Why come to this assembly and ask for permission like beggars?" "Because we are not conquerors," said. "We did not build this fleet to destroy you. We built it to protect ourselves. There is a difference." She turned to face this platform. "We know our history. We know what the conquered has done to species that challenged it. 17 species wiped from existence by the Alone. Dozens more absorbed or destroyed by other members. We knew that if we revealed ourselves too early, you would see us as a threat, and you would crush us before we could grow." She spread her hands. "So we hid, we built in secret. We prepared for the day when we would be strong enough that you could not simply sweep us aside. And now that day has come." The high speaker finally spoke. His voice was different now. The contempt was gone. In its place was something harder, something more dangerous. "You threaten us," he said. "You bring a fleet to our station and tell us to accept you or face war." "No," said firmly. "I bring a fleet to your station to show you that we cannot be dismissed. That is not a threat. That is a fact. A threat would be to tell you what we will do if you refuse us. I have not done that." She stepped forward on her platform, closer to the high speaker. "I want you to understand something. We could have done this differently. We could have attacked without warning. We could have used our ships to take what we wanted by force. That is what you would have done. I have read your history. I know how to deal with species they consider inferior." Her voice hardened. "But we are not you. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We do not want to burn worlds or exterminate species. We want to live. We want to grow. We want to explore and discover and create. And we believe we can do that better as partners than as enemies." The assembly had gone quiet. The panic had faded, replaced by a tense, watchful silence. Every delegate was listening. "This fleet is not here to threaten you," continued. "It is here to show you that we are equals, that we deserve to be treated with respect, that our voice matters." She turned slowly, looking at all the platforms, all the species, all the ancient powers that had laughed at her minutes ago. "You mocked us because you thought we were weak. You dismissed us because you thought we were temporary. But you were wrong. We are strong. We are permanent. And we are not going away." She faced the assembly speaker directly. "Now you have a choice. You can accept us as members of your conquered. You can treat us as partners and allies. You can benefit from our creativity, our energy, our drive. Together, we could accomplish things that neither of us could achieve alone." Her expression grew serious. "Or you can reject us. You can tell us to go home, as the high speaker suggested. And we will go, but we will not disappear. We will not stop growing. We will not stop building. And every year we will become stronger. Every decade we will spread further. Every century we will advance faster than you can imagine." She let that sink in. In 1,000 years, they will still be contemplating the same questions they contemplated 1,000,000 years ago. They will still be managing the same hive networks they have always managed. They will still be coiling in the same palaces, ruling the same planets, following the same patterns. Her voice grew quiet but intense. "But humanity, in 1,000 years we will be everywhere. We will have spread across the galaxy like fire across dry grass. We will have invented technologies you cannot imagine. We will have changed in ways you cannot predict. Because that is what we do. We change, we grow, we evolve." She straightened her spine. "You can be part of that future, or you can watch it happen from the outside. The choice is yours. The assembly was completely silent. No one moved. No one spoke. The fleet hung in space outside, thousands of ships gleaming in the darkness, a reminder of everything had said. Finally, the high speaker uncoiled himself. He rose to his full height, towering above's platform, his yellow eyes fixed on her face. "You speak of partnership," he said. "But you bring weapons. You speak of peace, but you show us war. How can we trust a species that hides its strength? How can we trust a species that surprises us with fleets?" Met his gaze without flinching. "You can trust us," she said, "because we are still here talking. We could have attacked. We could have demanded. We could have taken. But instead we asked. We presented our case. We showed you who we are and what we can do, and we gave you the choice." She smiled just slightly. "That is how humans work. We hope for the best. We prepare for the worst, and we never, ever give up." The high speaker stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he turned to face the assembly. "The human makes an interesting argument," he said. "Perhaps we should consider it more carefully." And for the first time felt a spark of hope. The debate lasted for 6 hours. Stood on her platform through all of it. Her legs ached. Her throat was dry. But she did not sit down and she did not ask for water. She stood straight and tall and answered every question that came her way. The questions were endless. Some delegates wanted to know about human technology. Others asked about human biology, human society, human psychology. A few asked questions that were obviously designed to trick her, to make her say something that could be used against humanity later. She answered them all, honestly, directly, without tricks of her own. The delegate asked how humans could be trusted when they had hidden their fleet for so long. "We hid because we had to," said. "Because showing our strength too early would have meant destruction. But now that we have revealed ourselves, we have no more secrets. The fleet you see is real. Our intentions are real. We are not playing games." They asked how humanity could function without a hive mind, without a central intelligence to guide them. "We guide ourselves," said. "Each human is an individual with their own thoughts and their own choices. This makes us chaotic, yes, but it also makes us creative. When one of us fails, the others continue. When one idea dies, 1,000 more are born. We are not a single point of failure. We are a network of possibilities." A delegate from a species did not recognize asked why humanity wanted to join the conquered at all. If they were so strong, why not simply take what they wanted? "Because strength is not the same as wisdom," said. "We are strong, yes, but we are also young. You have knowledge we do not have, experience we cannot match, technology we have not yet invented. We could spend centuries learning these things on our own, or we could learn them from you. Partnership benefits everyone." The questions continued, answered them all. Finally, after 6 hours, the assembly speaker raised his crystalline appendage. "Enough," he said. "We have heard the human's case. We have asked our questions. Now we must decide." His heart pounded in her chest, but she kept her face calm. This was the moment. Everything she had worked for, everything humanity had built, came down to this. "The rules of the conquered are clear," the speaker continued. "Membership requires a unanimous vote of the senior delegates. Any single objection will result in rejection." He turned to the delegate. How do you vote?" The crystal being was silent for a long moment. His body shifted through colors that could not name. Finally, he spoke. "The humans have shown us something unexpected. They have shown us that short lives can produce long achievements. They have shown us that weakness can become strength. I find myself curious about what they might accomplish." He paused. "I vote in favor of membership." Let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. 1 vote, 1 down, 2 to go. The speaker turned to the... "How do you vote?" The buzzing voice filled the chamber. "They have always valued efficiency, unity, order. Humanity has none of these things. They are chaotic, unpredictable, dangerous." His heart sank. But they continued. "They also value survival, and we have seen today that humanity will survive. Whether we welcome them or not, whether we fight them or not, they will endure." The buzzing grew louder. "It is better to have such a species as an ally than as an enemy. The vote in favor of membership." 2 votes, 2 down, 1 to go. The speaker turned to the high speaker. "And you, how do you vote?" The chamber went completely silent. Every eye was on the serpentine being who had mocked humanity so viciously. The being who had called them weak. temporary, children playing at civilization. The high speaker was still. His yellow eyes were fixed on, studying her, measuring her. She met his gaze without looking away. "I have lived for 4 million years," he said slowly. "I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species that thought themselves eternal crumble to dust. I have learned that the universe does not care about strength or weakness. It cares only about adaptation, about survival, about the will to continue when everything else has ended." He uncoiled his body, rising higher and higher until he towered over the entire assembly. "Today I have seen something I have not seen in a very long time. I have seen a species that refuses to accept its place. A species that looks at the impossible and says, 'We will find a way.' A species that hides in the shadows until it is strong enough to step into the light." His scales had returned to their normal silver color. The fear was gone. In its place was something else. Respect, perhaps, or recognition. "The do not admire weakness," he said, "but we recognize strength when we see it, and humanity is strong, not in the way we expected, not in the way we understand, but strong nonetheless." He lowered his head until his eyes were level with. "I vote in favor of membership." The chamber erupted in sound, hundreds of species reacting at once. Some cheered, some protested, some simply stared in shock. The noise was overwhelming but barely heard it. They had done it, they had actually done it. The assembly speaker raised his appendage, calling for silence. "The vote is unanimous," he announced. "Humanity is hereby accepted as a full member of the Galactic Concord, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. Welcome to the family of stars." Finally allowed herself to smile, not a diplomatic smile, not a careful, measured expression, a real smile full of relief and joy and triumph. "Thank you," she said. "On behalf of all humanity, thank you." The high speaker slithered closer to her platform. For a moment, thought he might attack, but instead he simply looked at her with those ancient yellow eyes. "You played us well, human," he said quietly. "You let us mock you, you let us underestimate you, and then you showed us the truth." Nodded, "That was the plan." "A dangerous plan. If your fleet had been smaller, if your words had been less convincing, we would have destroyed you." "Yes," agreed, "but we believed in ourselves, we believed we could do it, and we did." The high speaker made a sound that might have been a laugh, but this time it was not cruel, it was almost warm. "I have a feeling," he said, "that humanity is going to be very interesting." Looked out at the fleet still hanging in space, at the thousands of ships that represented everything her species had achieved. Then she looked back at the assembly, at the ancient beings who had finally accepted humanity as their equals. "You have no idea," she said. The ceremony that followed lasted for hours. There were rituals and speeches and traditions that went back thousands of years. Participated in all of them, representing her species with grace and dignity. But in the quiet moments, when no one was watching, she allowed herself to think about what had really happened today. Humanity had been mocked, dismissed, treated like children. And they had proven everyone wrong. Not through violence, not through threats, but through determination, through preparation, through the simple, stubborn refusal to accept that they could not succeed. That was what it meant to be human. That was what made them different from every other species in the galaxy. They looked at the impossible and said, "We will find a way." And they always did. As finally left the assembly hall, walking back to her ship through corridors that no longer seemed so intimidating, she thought about the future, about the challenges that lay ahead, about the work that remained to be done. Humanity was part of the conquered now, but that was just the beginning. There were still things to prove, still battles to win, still mountains to climb. But that was fine. That was what humans did. They climbed mountains. They crossed deserts. They walked on moons. And now they walked among the stars. Not as visitors, not as beggars, but as equals. Smiled and kept walking. The galaxy was waiting. And humanity was ready.